The sky over Earth was not blue anymore. It had turned gray long ago, covered by giant alien ships that hovered like silent mountains above every city. These ships had no sound, no engines, no flashing lights, just cold metal shadows blocking out the sun. It had been 30 years since Earth lost the war. Once, humans had believed in freedom. Once, there were armies and fleets of ships defending the planet, but those fleets were now dust. The armies were gone. Earth had been shackled by the Valrith Dominion, a galactic empire that ruled over hundreds of worlds. Earth was just another trophy knower, resource planet, stripped and broken. The cities below those iron skies were quiet. People walked with their eyes down. Factories ran day and night, producing metals, fuels, weapons, all for Velrith. There was no police anymore. No human soldiers. Only Velrith patrols. Tall, silver-armored creatures with blank faces and black rifles. Nobody dared resist. Not anymore. But even in silence, stories kept moving like whispers. The tunnels beneath the ruined city of New York, a man walked alone. His boots stepped over broken stone and ash. His name was Kale. Kale wasn't like the others. He wasn't afraid anymore. He wore old human combat gear, patched and scarred. His face was hidden under a cracked helmet, and on his back he carried something forbidden, a plasma rifle, the kind only Velrith soldiers use now. Kale stopped near an old subway station. It was dark here. No lights. Velrith thought this place was dead, but Kale knew better. He knelt beside an ancient control box covered in rust. With slow, careful hands, he opened it. Inside was a small device no larger than a fist, hidden. Years ago, a signal beacon. It had been waiting for someone brave enough to turn it on. Kale's gloved finger hovered over the activation button. His breathing slowed. If he pressed it, the Velrith would know. They would come. There would be blood. But if he didn't press it, Earth would stay silent forever. Kale pressed the button. For a moment, nothing happened. Then deep beneath the ground, something old came back to life. A signal pulsed. Beacon lit up, hidden far below Valrith's scanners. The Ember signal, it was not just a message. It was a call. Across Earth's broken network, still alive in shadow screens, blinked. On, in old basements, in forgotten bunkers, in hidden rooms where humans still dared to listen, a simple message appeared. The Ember burns again. And far above, on the Velrith command ship hovering over New York, alarms suddenly screamed, Velrith. Commander Vrax stood tall, staring at the red alerts flashing across his command bridge. His skin was silver blue, hard as metal. His eyes were dark and empty. Vrax spoke in a voice like grinding steel. A human signal, he said. Impossible. Oh. One of his officers replied in the Velrith language, full of sharp clicks and echoes. Confirmed. Sector 9, below human ruins. Possible Ember activity. Vrax narrowed his eyes, remembered the Ember Rebellion. 30 years ago they had crushed it with orbital strikes. The humans should not have the strength to do this again. Send the scouts, Vrax ordered coldly. Erase them, too, Velrith. Scout ships peeled away from the main fleet, dropping silently toward the surface like silver arrows. Below, Kale watched the sky flicker. He saw their shadows coming. He did not run. Instead, he reached up and pulled the plasma rifle from his back. His hands were steady. His heart was calm. The war had never really ended for him. Minutes later, the two Velrith scouts touched down outside the subway station. Their landing was smooth, silent. Dust rose around their legs. Two Valrith soldiers stepped out. They carried pulse rifles, scanning the ruins with practiced boredom. To them, this was just routine. But as they walked into the subway tunnel, they noticed something strange. Fresh footprints in the dust. One of them raised his scanner. Human detected, he said, through static-filled coms. Before he could speak another word, the tunnel lit up with blue plasma fire. Kale stepped from the shadows, rifle raised. His first shot punched through the first Velrith's chest plate, cutting him down instantly. The second soldier spun to fire back, but Kalea was faster. His second shot hit the creature's rifle, melting it, and a third bolt burned straight into its helmet. Both aliens fell. Dead Kale lowered his weapon. Breathing slowly, it was the first time in 30 years that a human had killed Velrith soldiers on Earth. Outside, the signal beacon kept pulsing. Across the galaxy, in hidden human fleets scattered in deep space, old comms channels lit up. A voice whispered through space, "Earth rises again." But on Earth itself, things were moving quickly now. Velrith drones circled over the ruins, scanning for Kale. Massive troop carriers powered up. Orbital cannons aimed toward the subway ruins. Kale knew they would come for him, wasn't afraid. He moved deeper into the tunnels, following old maps burned into his mind. He wasn't just here to light the signal, he had another mission, hidden. Somewhere beneath New York was something the Velrith had failed to find, a weapon older than the war. A last secret left by Earth's defenders before their fall. Kale's boots echoed as he ran. The ground shook slightly above Velrith's strikes. Hitting nearby blocks, dust fell from the ceiling. He reached an ancient door, locked with human tech no one used anymore. Kale knelt, pulled a small device from his belt, and hacked the lock. With a hiss, the door opened. Inside was a room filled with darkness, and in the center of that darkness, lit by a single flickering light, stood a machine. It looked like a generator, surrounded by old human wires and armor plates. But Kale knew its real name, Project Ashfire, the last hope of Earth's freedom. Outside Velrith, patrols gathered. Hundreds of silver-armored soldiers lined the streets. Their leader, Commander Vrax himself, landed in a personal transport. Stepping onto human soil for the first time in years, Vrax looked around the ruined city with cold disgust. "Destroy everything," he ordered. Troops moved forward. Buildings fell. Streets cracked under plasma fire. But below the chaos, Kale worked quickly. His fingers moved across the Ashfire control panel, wiping away dust, reactivating systems. The machine pulsed once with bright orange light. Kale smiled under his helmet. It wasn't just a signal anymore. It was the first fire above Earth. Iron sky no longer looked so silent. Velrith ships hovered close together, forming attack formations. But one by one, lights began flickering across their hulls. Power drains. Systems failing. One ship spun slowly. Dead in space. Kale's voice echoed. Through all Velrith, channels now. Calm, strong. This is Kale of Earth. You thought we were broken. You thought we forgot how to fight. But fire never dies. It just waits. In bunkers across Earth, hidden human resistance members watched in silence, their eyes filled with tears. It had begun. The iron sky would not last forever. Kale stood tall. As Project Ashfire's systems powered up fully, behind him the lights burned bright orange, painting the dark tunnel walls like sunrise. He knew what would come next. He didn't care. The first battle was here, and Earth was ready. The subway tunnel was filled with smoke. Dust hung in the air, glowing faintly orange from the light of the machine behind Kale. Project Ashfire was alive now, humming with quiet power. Kale stood in front of it, holding his plasma rifle, listening. Carefully, footsteps echoed from the far end of the tunnel. Heavy metal boots? Kale didn't flinch. His helmet's visor flickered, detecting movement. 2 Velrith soldiers entered the tunnel slowly, weapons raised, their silver armor glowing under small blue lights on their shoulders. They spoke to each other in sharp, clipped sounds. Kale couldn't understand the words, but he didn't need. He already knew what they were saying. A human, here. Impossible. The first Velrith raised his weapon. Kale squeezed the trigger first. A bolt of plasma hit the alien's rifle, melting it instantly. Another shot burned into its shoulder, spinning it backward. Kale moved forward without hesitation. He ducked left, firing again, striking the second. Soldier and the chest plate sparks flew. The Velrith dropped hard. Both soldiers lay still. Silent Kale stepped over them. His breathing was steady. In his mind, he thought about the others. About Earth. About the people still living in fear. He wasn't here just for himself. Kale pulled a small cum device from his belt. It was old, human-made, patched together from scavenged parts. He clicked it on and spoke quietly. "Sector 9 clear," he said. "Ash fire online." His voice traveled. Through secret channels, far away, across the world and hidden rooms, small human groups listened. There were still people who hadn't given up. Old soldiers, engineers, families, people hiding underground for years, waiting, hoping. When they heard Kale's voice, hope sparked like fire in dry wood. The Ember signal wasn't just a call anymore. It was real. Above the city, Velrith ships moved into new positions. Dozens of sleek silver shapes blocked out the sky, forming tight circles. At the center of the formation, the largest ship floated cold and quiet. Inside, Commander Vrax stood with his officers, eyes fixed on the holographic map. He saw the signal. He saw the human interference. His face didn't show anger, only focus. "Deploy drones," he ordered. 1,000 small silver drones launched from the ship, spreading across the city like a black cloud. They searched every street, every tunnel, every ruin. But Kale wasn't in the open. He was deep underground. Moving carefully, he knew they would come. He knew this wasn't over. Kale checked his weapon, reloaded the plasma cells, and moved deeper into the tunnels. Behind him, Project Ashfire glowed steadily. It didn't just send a signal. It sent a pulse through the air, disrupting Velrith tech nearby. Systems glitched. Cameras shut down. It was only the beginning. Kale wasn't alone anymore. Miles away. In the ruins of old Paris, a small group of humans gathered in a dark room lit by flickering screens. Their leader, a woman named Mara, stood up when she saw the signal come through. Mara was tall, with short-cut hair and eyes like ice. She had been a soldier once. Now, she was a leader of ghosts. "Kale's alive," she said quietly. The others, in the room, stared at her. For years, they had hidden like rats, surviving on scraps. Watching Earth fall deeper into silence, now things were different. "We moved tonight," Mara said. "No more hiding. Across the world, other human cells. Made the same decision, from old mines in Africa, to hidden bunkers under Siberia, to sunken cities below the oceans. The Ember was back, but the Velrith weren't going to let it spread. At sunset, over New York, Velrith gunships opened fire. Plasma blasts rained down from the sky, destroying entire city blocks. Buildings turned into ash. The ground shook underground. Kale felt the tremors through his boots. He didn't stop. Instead, he reached an old storage room filled with crates. He opened one, revealing something wrapped in black cloth. Inside was another weapon, a human-made rail rifle. Long, heavy, powerful. It could punch through Velrith armor like paper. Kale picked it up. His hands knew its weight. His heart stayed steady. From the shadows, he watched as Velrith patrols entered the subway station above him. Dozens of them. Drones, soldiers, scanners. Kale waited. He let them come closer. When the first soldier stepped into the open, Kale fired. The rail rifle's shot was like thunder. A metal slug tore through the soldier, shattering armor and walls behind him. The body collapsed in a heap. Velrith forces opened fire, filling the tunnel with blue light and burning plasma bolts. Kale moved like smoke, stepping between shadows, firing again. One shot, one kill. In minutes, the tunnel was filled with bodies. Smoke hung thick in the air. Kale stood at the edge, silent, weapon ready. His visor flickered, showing targets. None remained. But in the sky above, things were changing. Velrith commanders realized this wasn't a small human cell. This wasn't a random spark. This was organized. Dangerous Commander Vrax watched as reports came in. He saw how fast his patrols were falling. He clenched one clawed hand around the edge of his control panel. "Prepare the Sunfire Protocol," one of his officers hesitated. "But Commander, it will destroy. Do it." Sunfire Protocol was a city-burn weapon. A final warning. The last step before full planetary extermination. Velrith ships moved into position. Kale knew what was coming. His visor picked up strange energy readings. He stepped back from the edge of the tunnel, his eyes narrowing. He clicked his cum again. "This is Kale. They're bringing out Sunfire. Get the networks ready. I'm going dark." From the other side, Mara's voice crackled through. "Understood. Kale. Shut down the cum." He pulled a small device from his belt, a black cube with a single red light, placed it on the wall beside Project Ashfire's core. It was a backup beacon. If Kale fell, it would keep sending the ember signal until someone else found it. Then he turned and ran. The ground above him shook harder now. Plasma strikes rained down, destroying what little remained of New York. Fires rose into the sky. Kale didn't look back. He moved through the tunnels, following old escape routes mapped long ago in his mind. He remembered the last days of the old war, the final stand. How Earth had lost, but he wasn't thinking about loss anymore. He was thinking about what would come. Not survival. Victory as night fell. Earth looked like it was burning from orbit, but not all the fire came from Velrith's weapons. Some of it came from humans, from Ember, cells rising in every shadow, from the first man who refused to stay silent, from Kale, the last flame that refused to die, and in the darkness. Across the galaxy, something else stirred. Not all human fleets had been destroyed. Some had escaped long ago into deep space. They were listening now, and they were coming back. The city was silent. Smoke covered the streets like a thick gray blanket. The sky above Earth was darker than ever. Alien ships floated there, forming a circle that stretched from one horizon to the other. From a distance, it looked like Earth wore a chain around its neck. The Velrith called it the Iron Ring. Kale moved through the ruins below that sky, his boots stepping carefully over broken concrete. His rifle hung across his back. His mind was calm. He knew that at any moment, those ships could fire again and end everything. But he kept walking. In his ear, the cum crackled softly. Mara's voice spoke. Kale, ... The network is ready. Are you sure you want to do this now? Kale didn't answer right away. He paused at the edge of a broken building, looking up. The Velrith warships floated so high, yet they felt close, like they were watching him. It's time, Kale said. Quietly, he pulled out a small device from his belt. It was shaped like a black cube with silver wires. His fingers moved over the surface, pressing hidden switches. A red light blinked once. ... twice. Then steady. That was the sign. The signal was ready. Now it wasn't just about calling the Ember cells across Earth. It was about letting the Velrith know the truth. Humans were not finished. Kale pressed the final button. Across the planet, transmitters came online. Some were buried in mountains. Some were hidden under oceans. Old human tech that had been sleeping for decades now woke up, and suddenly, on every Velrith ship, alarms screamed. Commander Vrax stood on the bridge of his dreadnought, his dark eyes flashing with cold anger. His officers shouted in sharp Velrith. Words, symbols flickered across the screens, known signals, jamming codes, power disruptions. What is this? Vrax growled. One of his officers replied, voice tense. Human interference, system-wide, spreading across the Iron Ring. Vrax slammed one fist onto the command table. For the Velrith, this was impossible. Earth was supposed to be shackled, broken, silent. And yet now, ... above the dreadnought, lights along the Iron Ring flickered. One by one, engines failed. Weapons powered down. Shield generators cracked. The entire fleet began to stall in place, and then Kale's voice came, through every channel. This is Kale of Earth, he said, his tone calm, steady. You thought we were finished? You thought your chains could hold forever, but fire doesn't die, it just waits. Vrax clenched his claws tighter. Locate him, he ordered. Now, but Kale wasn't standing still. As the Velrith scrambled, he moved deeper into the ruins. His next target was the uplink tower structure the Velrith had built to control communications across Earth. If Kale took it down, people would have free comes again for the first time in 30 years. He sprinted through the shadows. Rifle ready. Along the way, more Ember cells joined him. In the ruins nearby, human fighters appeared one by one. Old uniforms, old weapons, but their eyes were alive with new fire. Kale nodded once to Mara as she joined him. Ready? She smiled sharply. Always. Together they led the strike team toward the tower, stood like a black needle against the sky, guarded by dozens of Velreth soldiers. Kale raised his rifle. Mara raised hers. The battle began. Plasma fire lit up the ruins. Railgun shots echoed like thunder. Velreth soldiers fell one after another as human fighters moved through the streets. Using cover, using speed, Kale moved like smoke between walls. 1 shot. 2 shots. His aim never missed. Near the tower base, Velreth drones swarmed, but Kale's team had brought EMP charges. Mara tossed one forward, a small black disc that exploded in a silent blue flash. Every drone dropped instantly. Kale kicked down the final door. Inside, the tower was filled with control panels, glowing blue symbols that Kale didn't recognize. But Mara's people knew how to handle it. While they worked, Kale stood guard, scanning the horizon, and then he saw them. A full Velreth drop dash force, 10 silver transports dropping from orbit, heading straight for the tower. Mara, now, Kale said sharply. We need 2 more minutes. Kale didn't wait. He sprinted outside, rifle in hand. The other human fighters followed him. They formed a wall at the tower's base. Velreth drop pods hit the ground hard, sending out shockwaves. Silver-armored soldiers poured out. Weapons ready. Kale fired first. The sky turned red and blue as plasma bolts and rail. Slugs crossed in midair. Humans fought with everything they had. Kale didn't stop moving, always pressing forward, always, aiming for the next target. His armor was scorched. His rifle was nearly overheating. But he didn't slow down. 1 minute, 2 minutes. At last, Mara's voice came through the come again. Kale, it's done. EarthNet is back online. Across the world, old comms systems flickered to life. Human voices spoke to each other openly. For the first time in decades, but the fight wasn't over. One Velrith transport landed closer. Its side opened and out stepped a figure heavier than the others. A Velrith juggernaut, 7 feet tall, its armor thick as a tank. In its hands, it carried a plasma cannon. Kale didn't blink. He dropped his rifle and pulled out a heavier weapon. From his back, human-made rocket launcher patched together from old parts. The juggernaut raised its cannon. Kale fired first. The rocket flew straight and true. Hitting the alien center mass, the explosion shook the ground. When the smoke cleared, only broken metal remained. Kale stood still, shoulders rising and falling slowly. Then the human fighters around him raised their voices in a single shout. It wasn't just victory over a tower. It was proof. Earth was fighting back. Back in orbit, the Velreth fleet continued to suffer. Systems glitching. Engines failing. Weapons offline. Commander Vrax watched all of it, silent and furious. His second officer spoke. The Iron Ring. It's breaking. Vrax said nothing. He stared at the flickering screens, knowing what it meant. The shackles were cracking, and Kale was the hammer. Night fell slowly over the planet. Fires burned in the ruins. But for the first time in 30 years, Earth wasn't completely dark. Lights flickered on in old cities. Human flags rose above ruined buildings. Kale stood at the edge of the tower now, watching the sky. Mara joined him. We've done it, she said. Kale didn't smile. His eyes stayed focused on the stars. Not yet, he said quietly. Velrith will hit back harder now. This was only the first crack. The real fight is coming. And deep in space, far beyond Earth, old human fleets were already moving. The Ember fleets, ships that had escaped destruction, hidden for decades, waiting now. They had heard Earth's call again, and they were coming home. The sky above Earth was not gray anymore. It was red dot, red from flames, red from drop pods falling through the atmosphere like shooting stars. At first, people thought it was another Velrith attack. For 30 years, whenever something fell from the sky, it meant death. plasma strikes, orbital bombardments. No one expected anything else. But tonight was different. Kale stood on top of the captured Velrith Tower, watching the red streaks fall. His helmet visor tracked each pod, counting 1, 2, 10, 50. Hundreds. He spoke into his cum quietly. "Mara, are you seeing this?" Her voice came back, tense and sharp. "I see it. Too many pods. That's not Velrith." Kale's hand tightened on his rail rifle. The pods were falling too slow. It's too steady. It's not like attack strikes. Not like Velrith weapons. Kale had fought Velrith soldiers all his life. He knew their tactics. This wasn't them. Across Earth, hidden human cells looked up at the sky, wondering if this was the end. But the pods didn't explode. They didn't burn cities. They didn't drop Velrith troops. Instead, when the pods hit the ground, their sides opened. Steam hissed out into the night air, and from each pod, humans stepped out. Not slaves. Not survivors. Human soldiers in black and silver battle armor. Tall, heavy, each one carried weapons no one on Earth had seen before. Rail cannons, EMP hammers, flame projectors. Kale watched as one of the soldiers walked forward from a pod nearby. The soldier's helmet clicked open, revealing a scarred face and a steady gaze. Kale's cum cracked again. "This is General Saren of the Ember Fleet," soldier said calmly. His voice echoed across all channels. "Earth, we heard your call." Kale's heart didn't beat faster. It slowed down. He knew that name. Saren had been part of the last human fleet before Earth fell. Everyone thought those ships were destroyed, lost to the Black, but they weren't. The Ember fleets had survived. Kale tapped his cum. "This is Kale," he said simply. "Welcome home from orbit." Velrith ships scrambled in panic. Their command channels were full of warnings. The iron ring had already been weakened. Now hundreds of unknown ships were appearing on their long-range scanners. Velrith Admiral Zurin spoke sharply from the main warship. "Unknown fleet detected. Human origin. Impossible numbers." The Velrith believed Earth was broken. The Velrith believed they had one. They had no idea how wrong they were. The Ember fleets arrived like a storm. From the dark of space, giant human warships moved into orbit. Titan-class destroyers, carrier ships, stealth corvettes. Ships that hadn't been seen in 30 years, their hulls were black, marked with orange ember symbols. Their weapons glowed faintly red, and they were not here to negotiate. The first human railgun volley hit the Velrith outer fleet within seconds. Velrith ships exploded in fireballs as slugs the size of buildings punched through them. Shields cracked, armor shattered. Earth's sky lit up with debris falling like burning stars. On the surface, Kale moved with Soren's troops through the city ruins. His old plasma rifle felt light compared to the weapons Soren's soldiers carried, but Kale didn't care about having the biggest gun. He cared about getting Earth back. Mara joined him, running beside his group. "This is real?" she asked, breathing hard. "This isn't a trick?" Kale looked at her. "It's real." Together they pushed forward. The first human city reclaimed by Earth's people was New York, block by block. Street by street, human soldiers and Ember troops worked together. Velrith forces fell back in confusion. Their commander shouted orders. But it was too late. The chains were breaking faster now. Kale and Saren stood side by side as they reached the center plaza of the city, now cleared of Velrith soldiers. Saren looked up at the sky, watching as human fleet weapons destroyed Velrith carriers one by one. "It took too long," Saren said quietly. "We should have come sooner." Kale didn't speak. He understood. War wasn't simple. The Ember fleets had been waiting for the right moment, for the right signal. Now they were here above them. Human ships deployed more drop pods, supplies, weapons, medicine, for the first time in 30 years. Earth wasn't starving. Earth wasn't begging. Earth was fighting and winning. But Kale knew it wasn't finished. The Velrith wouldn't just run. They would counterattack, Late that night, under a half-broken moon, Kale met with Saren and the other human leaders inside an old underground base. The air smelled of dust and fuel. Lights flickered. A map of Earth glowed on the wall. Red marks showed Valrith-controlled zones. Blue marks showed human gains. Saren leaned forward, pointing at the largest red zone, the Velreth Central Command Center in what had once been South America. That's where we break their hold completely, Saren said. Take that, and Earth is ours again. Kale studied the map. His eyes were calm, focused. We'll need everything we've got, Kale said. Saren nodded. We'll bring everything. From orbit, human fleet commanders prepared the next wave. Stealth bombers, heavy troop carriers, anti-orbital strikes. The Ember fleets were not here to make peace. They were here to finish what Earth had started. By dawn, the next battle was ready. Kale stood on the deck of a human warship now, looking down at Earth from orbit for the first time in his life. The planet looked smaller from here, but it also looked free. Mara stood beside him, holding her helmet under one arm. Do you think we'll win? She asked. Kale didn't smile. He didn't joke. We already did, he said. Simply the ship engines roared, and below them, Earth waited for its final chains to break. The sky was full of fire again, but this time it wasn't falling pods or battle smoke. It was something else. Over Earth's southern lands, a new kind of Velrith ship arrived, one larger than anything seen before. Its shape was wide like a black sun, round and flat, blocking out the stars. Kale stood on the command deck of the human warship Ember Light, staring at it through the wide windows. His face was calm, but inside he felt something strange. Not fear. Focused. General Saren stood beside him, arms crossed. His voice was hard as iron. That's the Velrith chainfire array. Kale said nothing for a moment. He just watched as the huge Velrith weapon slowly moved into position over Earth's surface. I thought it was a myth, Kale said finally. It isn't, Saren replied. It's a planet killer. One strike. Earth. ... Gone. A silence filled the bridge. Kale turned his head slightly, looking at Mara on his other side. Her face was pale, but her jaw was set. We have to stop it, she said. Kale nodded once. We will. Below on Earth, human resistance fighters were taking cities back, street by street, building by building. But none of that would matter if the chainfire fired. The Velrith were losing the ground war. This was their final move. Kale leaned forward and spoke into the comm system. This is Kale. All Ember fleets, prepare for full assault. We take the array, or Earth burns. Cross orbit, human ships moved into formation. Hundreds of them, big warships, small strike craft, stealth units. Saren gave orders calmly, his voice clear over every channel. Kale strapped his rifle across his back and checked his helmet seals. He wasn't just going to watch this battle from the bridge. He was going inside the Ember Lights. Hangar drop pods waited. Kale stepped into one with a squad of Ember soldiers. Mara was already inside, checking her rifle. First time jumping from orbit. She asked him quietly. Kale shook his head. First time against a planet killer. The pod's hatch closed. The lights turned red. Then came the voice over the speakers. Drop in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. The pod launched. It wasn't like falling. It was like flying straight into a storm. The walls shook. Fire licked past the small window as they entered the upper atmosphere. Kale didn't move. His mind was calm like ice. The pods hit the outer hull of the chainfire array hard. Clamps locked them in place. The hatch burst open, and Kale was already moving. Inside the array, everything was silver and black. Valrith design. Cold lights. No sound, except for the soft hum of power running through the walls. Kale's boots hit the metal floor. His rifle was up before the first Velrith soldiers appeared. He fired without pause. Plasma bolts cut through the narrow corridor. Mara and the others followed close behind. The team spread out, taking cover behind wall sections. Kale moved forward fast. He wasn't here for small fights. He was heading straight for the core. above human fleets kept the Velrith warships busy. Railgun slugs and plasma fire lit up the sky like a storm. But if Kale failed inside, none of that would matter. The team reached the main reactor door. It was sealed with a thick silver plate, locked with alien codes. Kale knelt beside it, pulling out a small hacking device. His hands moved quickly. Sparks flew as he forced the system open. Then the door slid aside with a heavy groan. Inside, the core room glowed white-blue. Energy pulsed through giant tubes and spinning rings. In the center was the firing mechanism, a round black sphere larger than a house, and standing in front of it was Commander Vrax himself. Vrax turned slowly, claws resting on his sidearm. His silver-blue skin reflected the core's light. His voice was calm but full of venom. "You should have stayed in your tunnels, human." Kale stepped forward slowly, rifle ready. "This is over, Vrax." Vrax laughed once, a low grinding sound. "No, it has just begun." With a flick of his hand, Vrax activated the array's countdown. Red lights flashed across the room. A loud voice in Velrith language spoke the final sequence. Kale didn't wait. He fired. Vrax moved just as fast, drawing his weapon and firing back. Plasma shots screamed through the air. Kale ducked left, rolling behind cover. Mara and the others opened fire, but Vrax was already in motion. He wasn't just a commander. He was a warrior. Kale rose from cover, aiming carefully. One shot. Two Vrax's shoulder armor cracked. The countdown continued. Kale checked the timer. 60 seconds. Too close, he shouted to Mara. Set charges on the core. Now, while she and the others worked, Kale moved forward again, closing the distance with Vrax. This wasn't just about shooting anymore. This was about stopping the man, with shackled earth. Vrax swung a clawed fist, catching Kale's shoulder. The force threw Kale against the wall. Pain flared in his ribs, but he stood back up, weapon raised. Vrax charged. But Kale pulled the trigger. Point-blank shot. The plasma bolt hit Vrax in the chest. The Velrith commander staggered, claws twitching. His voice was a sharp hiss. "You cannot win." Kale stepped closer. "Steady. We already have." He fired once more. Vrax collapsed. The countdown hit 10 seconds. Mara's voice shouted through the cum. "Charges set. Get out now." Didn't argue. The team ran back through the halls as alarms screamed. The ship shook. Ember drop pods detached, flying away from the array as it began to tear itself apart from the inside. From orbit. Human fleets pulled back just in time to watch the chain fire. Array explode in a silent white flash. The sky lit up, and when the light faded, the Velrith fleet was broken. Earth was free. Kale stood once more on solid ground hours later, his boots touching Earth's soil without enemy ships hanging overhead. Mara stood beside him. Sauron as well. People gathered in the streets, looking up. No chains, no iron sky. For the first time in 30 years, the sky was just blue. A single human flag rose above the central plaza. Kale looked up at it, and for the first time in a long time, he allowed himself to breathe like a man who wasn't at war anymore. The sky over Earth was quiet. For the first time in 30 years, no Velrith warships floated above. No more plasma strikes. No more burning cities. Earth was free. But for Kale, it didn't feel finished yet. He stood on a hill outside the city. Ruins, looking at the sunrise. The colors felt strange to him, gold and red and soft. For so many years, Kale had only known gray skies and shadows. Mara walked up beside him. She carried her helmet under one arm, dust on her face. She didn't say anything at first, just stood next to Kale, looking at the light. Finally, she spoke. "You should get some rest." Kale shook his head slowly. "Not yet." Mara frowned. "Slightly, the Velrith fleet is gone. Earth's people are standing up again. Why not?" Kale didn't answer right away. His eyes stayed focused on the horizon. "It feels quiet," he said quietly. "Too quiet." Mara watched him, then slowly nodded. She understood. War like this didn't just end in one battle. That morning, Emberfleet soldiers worked across the planet. They helped human survivors rebuild. They cleared ruined cities. They set up new towers not for control, but for communication and defense. For the first time in a long time, Earth spoke as one planet again. But Cale couldn't shake the feeling. Something wasn't right. He spent hours walking through the ruins. Every street, every old subway tunnel. He checked abandoned Velrith equipment. Some of the weapons left behind were still hot, still active. And then, as the sun set again, he found an old Velrith command bunker hidden under a ruined building. In what had once been South America, Cale moved inside carefully, rifle ready. The bunker lights still worked. Faint blue glow panels lit the walls. Cale checked the panels, one by one. That's when he saw the message. A single line of Velrith code, still running on the main screen. Phase 2 ready. Cale's chest tightened slightly. He tapped his Mara. Now. It didn't take long for Saren to arrive. The Ember Fleet leader walked into the bunker with 2 guards, looking serious as always. Cale pointed at the screen. "What does it mean?" Cale asked. Soren's face darkened. "That's a Velrith failsafe," he said quietly. "If they lose control of Earth, they trigger something else." Cale narrowed his eyes. "Like what?" Serene was silent for a moment. Then he answered, "Planet-wide purge protocol." Cale's voice was steady. "Explain." Serene exhaled slowly, deep under Earth's crust, before the war ended. Velrith engineers placed fusion cores planet breakers, silent, hidden. If Earth ever rose again, they would detonate them from orbit. Erase the planet. Mara's voice came through the suddenly, sharp. "Cale, ... We're picking up strange signals. Something's happening in orbit." Cale and Soren ran outside. In the sky, above the edge of the planet, a single Velrith ship had appeared. It wasn't large. It wasn't a warship. It was a signal ship designed for one purpose: to send the purge command. Cale's heart didn't race. His voice was steady. "We have to stop that signal." Saren spoke quickly into his "All fleet units, move on that ship now." Human warships burned into the sky, racing toward the Velrith signal ship. But it wasn't alone. From deep space, more Velrith vessels suddenly appeared. Not a fleet, just a handful of stealth ships. But fast, deadly. They opened fire immediately. The sky turned red again. Cale watched from the surface, feeling helpless for the first time since the war began. "Mara," he said through the "Come ready an emergency launch. I'm going up." Minutes, Cale was in a strike shuttle. The small ship punched through the atmosphere faster than anything built before. Cale stood beside the pilot, helmet on. Eyes locked on the Velrith signal ship growing larger ahead. Human ships surrounded it. But the Velrith stealth ships were fast, cutting through defenses. The Velrith ship's core started to glow. Cale understood. They were seconds from sending the final purge signal. "Get me on that ship," Cale ordered. The pilot didn't argue. The shuttle slammed into the Velrith ship's docking bay at full speed. Cale jumped out before the shuttle even fully stopped. Inside the enemy vessel, he moved fast. Rifle up, step steady. There were no guards. The Velrith didn't expect boarders. This was a last move, not a fight. Cale reached the command center. The room was empty, except for one figure, a single Velrith operator sitting before a giant console, claws moving fast across glowing controls. Cale didn't shout. He didn't warn. He fired once. The Velrith fell forward, claws limp. Cale ran to the console. His hands moved quickly, punching buttons. His helmet's HUD translated the alien words, "Purge signal, 97%, 80. He wasn't too late. Cale ripped open the control panel and pulled every power cable out by hand. Sparks flew. The screen went dark. He stood there in the silence for a long moment, breathing slow. Then Soren's voice crackled through. "Cale, ... The signal stopped. Cale closed his eyes for a second, then spoke calmly. "Earth is safe." "Why?" Didn't smile. Not yet. Later, when the last Velrith stealth ship had been destroyed, and Earth's sky was finally truly clear, Cale returned to the surface. He stood on the same hill as before, looking at the stars. Mara walked up beside him. "Again, this time?" she asked quietly. Cale looked up. "No more chains," he said, and this time he meant it. Earth was no longer a silent world. Cities lit up at night. Human banners flew from old towers. Families walked in the streets again, without fear of Velrith ships above them. But for Cale, the war wasn't finished. He stood in the rebuilt command center of New York, now the heart of Earth's defense network. General Saren stood beside him, studying a large holomap showing Earth and the edge of the solar system. Mara entered the room quietly. Her voice was steady. "Cale, we've found them." Cale didn't have to ask who she meant. For weeks after the last Velrith attack, humans searched space beyond Earth's orbit, looking for anything. A final ship, a hidden base, the Ember Fleet, had scanners far more advanced than anything Earth once had. Now, Mara brought the answer. She pointed to a red mark blinking at the edge of the holomap. "There's a Velrith command ship hiding near Jupiter's dark side. It's bigger than anything we've seen. It wasn't part of the battle." Cale stared at the red light for a long moment. Then he spoke quietly. "They weren't just trying to destroy Earth. They were waiting." Serene nodded. His voice was low. "Velrith don't believe in surrender. If they couldn't hold Earth, they would retreat and prepare to strike again." From the shadows, Cale straightened. His voice was steady now. "Then we don't wait. We go to them." Within hours, the Ember Fleet gathered. Hundreds of ships, battleships, carriers, stealth hunters. Cale stood on the deck of the Ember Light as final preparations were made. His rifle rested across his back. He wore fresh armor, now black and silver, marked with the Ember symbol. Mara walked up beside him. "This is the last one," she said quietly. Cale nodded once. "It has to be." The fleet launched from orbit. Engines lit the sky like shooting stars. For hours they moved through the dark between planets. Past Mars. Past the asteroid belt. Toward the dark side of Jupiter. The stars felt closer out here. Space was silent, cold. Finally, scanners picked up the Velrith ship. It was massive, longer than 10 human city blocks. Black as space itself, hidden from sensors until now. Around it floated smaller escort ships, Velrith hunters. Cale stood in front of the main viewing window as the Ember Light slowed to battle speed. Saren's voice echoed across all fleet channels. "This is it. For Earth, for the future, no mercy." Cale spoke next. "End it." The first railgun volleys fired. The human fleet lit up the dark side of Jupiter with lines of burning red and gold. Velrith ships fired back, plasma cutting through the void. Cale watched calmly. His eyes didn't blink. This time, he said quietly, "We finished the chain." Drop pods launched. Cale and his team were among them. Inside the pod, Mara checked her weapon one last time. "You ready?"
Yes.
Cale didn't answer with words. He just checked his rifle and nodded. The pod hit the side of the Velrith command ship hard. The hatch opened. Cale and the others stepped out into darkness. Inside the ship, the walls were smoother than any Velrith tech Cale had seen before. Silent. Lights glowed along the floor. The team moved in tight formation. Weapons ready. It didn't take long for Velrith guards to appear. Cale fired first. His shots were sharp and clean. Every movement felt automatic now. Years of fighting had made him into something else. Not just a soldier, not just a leader, a breaker of chains. The team pushed forward through narrow halls. Floor by floor, they cleared the ship. Finally, they reached the command core. The room was huge, round, filled with floating data screens. In the center stood a tall figure. It wasn't like the other Velt. This one was bigger, heavier. His armor was covered in red markings. Cale stepped forward slowly. The figure turned, and Cale recognized him. Admiral Threx, the last true leader of the Velrith. Threx's voice was low, full of cold weight. "You should not be here, human." Cale didn't raise his rifle yet. I've been fighting your people my whole life, he said calmly. It ends today. Threx's claws flexed, but he didn't attack, not yet. Instead, Threx spoke again. You think breaking our fleet breaks our people? The Velreth exist in more than one place. Kale's voice stayed steady. Not after this. Threx made a sharp sound like a laugh. Then without warning, he lunged. Kale fired. The room turned into a blur of motion. Human soldiers moved in tight formation, shooting fast. Threx's armor absorbed many hits, but Kale kept firing. Step by step, he moved forward. 1 shot. 2 shots. Finally, Threx fell to one knee. Sparks flew from his chest. Kale stepped closer. Threx's voice was weaker now. You, break us. Kale didn't hesitate. He raised his rifle, one last time, and fired. Threx fell silent. Kale stood over him for a long moment. No words, no victory cry. Just silence. Then Mora's voice came through the cum. Kale, it's done. The Velreth command ship is breaking apart. The fleet is pulling back. Kale turned, walking back toward the pod dock. His steps were steady. No rush stopped behind him. The Velreth ship began to crack. Explosions lit the halls. The team escaped just in time. From the Ember Lights bridge, Kale stood with Saren and Mara. Watching as the last Velrith ship burned in the dark near Jupiter, Saren crossed his arms. That's it, he said. No. Kale didn't say anything for a while then. Quietly he spoke. Earth is free.
This time, truly.
And all across the human fleet, voices rose, not as soldiers, not as survivors, but as people who had finally broken the last chain. Earth was alive again. Cities lit up with bright lights. Human voices filled the air, not in whispers, but in songs and shouts. The Velrith were gone. For the first time in 30 years, there was no war in the sky. Kale walked through the middle of New Earth Plaza. The old city had been rebuilt. What once was ruins was now shining metal and stone. Flags waved in the wind. The air smelled like food and smoke, not fire and ash, but real cooking, real life. People waved as Kale passed. Some called his name. Children ran ahead, laughing. Kale nodded once to them, but he didn't stop walking. His mind wasn't caught on the celebrations. His mind stayed on one thought, making sure it stayed this way. At the command building near the center of the city, Mara waited for him. She wore her usual black armor, but without a rifle today. Her face was calm. They've gathered, she said. Kale walked with her up the steps into a large hall. Inside, leaders from all across Earth stood waiting. General Saren stood at the front, beside a tall black table covered in maps and plans. Kale stopped next to him. Saren's voice was clear. This is the first full council of Earth in 30 years. No more hiding, no more cells. One voice. Everyone in the room stayed quiet, listening. Saren nodded toward Kale. This man gave us that chance. Kale didn't say anything right away. He wasn't one for speeches. But after a moment, he spoke in his usual quiet way. This isn't just about fighting, Kale said. We broke the chains, but now, we have to build. He looked around the room, faces from every part of Earth, old soldiers, new leaders, engineers, farmers, survivors. We were scattered, Kale said. Now we stand together. We don't wait for another enemy to find us. We rise. The room filled with quiet agreement. After the meeting ended, Kale stood outside again. Night had fallen. Stars filled the sky above the city. But there were more than stars. Human ships now orbited Earth, the Ember fleets. Not as conquerors, but as protectors. Kale stood quietly, looking up. Mara stepped beside him again. Do you really believe it's finished? She asked. Kale's voice stayed steady. For now, Mara tilted her head slightly, and after, Kale thought about it for a moment. We rebuild, stronger. In the days that followed, Earth changed fast. Old factories powered up again. Schools opened. Farms spread across the land. For the first time in decades, Earth's people worked not just to survive, but to live. And yet, Cale couldn't stay in the city for long. One morning, he stood at the edge of the Ember Light once more. The warship's engines were ready. Its deck was quiet except for him and Saren. Saren studied Cale's face. "You're really going out?" "There," Saren said. Cale nodded once. "There are other Velrith colonies," Cale said. "Other dangers. Earth can't afford to sit still." Saren understood. He held out his hand. Cale took it. "Good hunting," Saren said. Cale didn't smile, but his eyes showed a little light. Mara arrived a moment later. She carried her rifle. "Figured you'd leave without me?" she asked. Cale shook his head. "Never." Together, they stepped onto the Ember Light. The ship rose into the sky slowly. Engines glowing orange from the ground, people looked up not with fear, but with pride. Earth's first fleet was leaving not as refugees. Cale stood on the command deck. Watching, as Earth slowly grew smaller behind them, Mara walked up beside him, as always. "So, ... where first?" she asked. Cale's answer was simple. "Wherever the chains are still locked." The Ember Light turned toward deep space. Stars stretched wide and endless. And for the first time, Cale felt something he hadn't in years. Not anger, not duty. Hope. Because Earth wasn't broken anymore, and as long as even one chain remained in the galaxy, Cale would be there to break it.